You have seen it in movies, dead people suddenly coming back to life. Sounds impossible, right? Well, what if I told you this was exactly happened multiple times in real life? There have been cases where people were declared dead, funeral were organized, and just when everyone thought it was over, boom, they woke up. And believe it or not, some people have even faked their own death just to see who would show up at their funeral. In the small village of Rowing, England, a farmer named Matthew Well was declared dead on October 2. The villagers gathered to say their last goodbyes. As they carried his coffin towards the cemetery, something unexpected happened. A man slipped on a dry leaves and fell. In the process, Matthew's coffin fell with him. Up until this point, everything was heartbreaking. But then an unbelievable thing happened. The infect caused the coffin lid to pop open and Matthew's lifeless body roll out. And then out of nowhere he woke up. Matthew did not just came back to life, he went to live for another 24 years. Imagine this. You walk into the kitchen in the morning and you see your dead grandma cooking breakfast. Sounds like something straight out a horror movie, right? Well, believe it or not, something very similar actually happened in China. A 95 years old woman, Zhu Feng, was declared dead. 6 days later, she suddenly got up from the coffin. Her family believed she had died for a head injury, so they quickly arranged a funeral. According to Chinese tradition, the dead body is kept at home for a few days to allow relatives to say their final goodbyes. But just one day before the funeral, when the family entered the house, they saw that the coffin was empty. The dead body was nowhere to be found. Panicked, they searched everywhere until they walked into the kitchen. And there she was. Grandma was cooking breakfast. Shocked, the family asked her what happened, and she simply replied, I slept for a long time. After waking up, I felt so hungry, and I wanted to cook something to eat. Doctors later confirmed that she had experienced artificial death, a rare condition where the body slows down so much that it appears lifeless. However, she came back alive to his family, which is a big deal. One day, Muhammad Raihan from Damascus, Syria, went to the market for some shopping. But suddenly, boom, a group of attackers bombed the market, turning everything into rubble within seconds. News reporters later confirmed that Raihan and several others are dead. They said his body was buried under the debris. When his family and friends heard this news, no one had found his body. Eventually, they assumed that Raihan's body might have been shattered by the explosion, and they organized a funeral without his body. But just as the funeral was reaching its final moment, something unbelievable happened. Ryan's family turned around and saw him standing right here. After being trapped under the rubble for 36 hours, he somehow managed to escape and walked straight into his own funeral. His hair and beard will still covered in the dust and debris. This unbelievable event took place on December 20, 1980 in Minnesota. Jinmik had just graduated from his high school a few months earlier. One day she decided to visit a friend's house. Since the house was far away, he chose a shortcut, a small road covered in deep snow. But the road was slippery. Her car lost control and skidded into a deep ditch. Unable to drive any further, Jin decided to walk the rest of the way. He assumed it was just half a kilometer away, but in reality it was nearly 2 kilometers. She started walking, unaware that the temperature had dropped to minus 30 degrees Celsius, around minus 22 F. In such cold weather, he suddenly fainted and fell into the snow. And about around 6 hours later, her friend found her frozen in her backyard with her eyes open. Seeing this, her friend thought she might be dead, but they immediately took her to the hospital. A doctor said her body was completely solid, just like a piece of meat out of a deep freeze. Her body was so frozen that even thermometers could not detect her temperature. Her skin had turned rock hard, making it impossible to inject anything into her veins. The situation was hopeless, but the doctors kept trying until the last moment, and miraculously, Jean slowly came back to life. In La Victoria, Venezuela, a man named Carles Camacho was driving somewhere when suddenly a massive truck crashed into his car. The accident was so terrible that he was declared dead on the spot. Because of this, he was taken for an autopsy. But that's when something unbelievable happened. As the doctors began cutting his face for the postmortem, the dead body suddenly started moving. The doctors frozen in shock. They quickly realized Carles was still alive. Later, Carles said, I woke up because the pain was unbearable. And now, this is the man who lived to show the world his own autopsy report. Doctor has declared this man dead. His family placed him on a wooden pier to say their final goodbyes. But then something unbelievable happened. This incident took place in Uttar Pradesh, India. According to Indian culture, the family was performing the last rite when suddenly the dead man started moving. And if that wasn't shocking enough, not only did she started speaking, but she even asked for a banana. Yes, you heard that right. Here you can see him eating a banana. A 66 years old from China, Zheng Diang came with a bizarre idea. He decided to fake his own funeral. Why? Just to see which of his family members would show up. Since he never married, Jing was very interested in this drama. In Chinese culture, just like the living, the dead also hold importance. Families are expected to regularly visit the graves of their ancestors. On the day of the funeral, Jiang was surprised to see over 40 family members and hundreds of villagers in attendance. But instead of being happy, he was disappointed because 20 of his closest friends and relatives did not show up. And since he was still very much alive, he might just hunt them down personally to make sure they never skip the actual funeral in the future. A truly bizarre incident took place in Ecuador, where a 76 years old man, Bella Mantau, suddenly woke up inside her own coffin. Doctors had already declared her dead and even issued an official death certificate. Believing she was gone, her family arranged the funeral, and on point they heard sounds from inside the coffin. Confused and terrified, they quickly opened the lid. They saw Belamanto moving and gasping for air. Without wasting a second, her family rushed her to the hospital. Janina Kolkewicz is a 91 years old Polish grandmother. On day her family noticed he wasn't breathing, so they immediately called a doctor. After checking her pulse and heartbeat, the doctor officially declared her dead. Since the funeral was scheduled for 2 days later, her family left her body in the morgue's freezer. But here's where things take an unbelievable turn. After 11 hours in freezing temperature, Janina's body suddenly started moving, and then she just woke up and walked home, as if nothing had happened. Since she had been in the cold for so long, she up with a bowl of soup and two pancakes. Even the doctor who declared her dead was also shocked. According to him, Janina's heartbeat completely stopped. This man has died not once, not twice, but 6 times and has came back to life. Ismailas, who lives in Tanzania. His first death happened while working and was declared dead by the doctors. But a few hours later, he came back to life. The second time, he died from malaria. His family placed him in a coffin, preparing for his burial. But just before they lowered him into the grave, he woke up. The third time, he had a car accident and came back to life after being treated by doctors. If that wasn't shocking enough, he was bitten by a deadly snake while working in the fields. He was kept in the morgue for 3 days and suddenly came back to life. And months later, he fell into the bathroom and died. But once again, just before the burial, he woke up. At this point, people in his village became terrified of him. They started believing he was a wizard or a devil. Out of fear, they even burned down his house with him inside. And guess what? Even after being burned alive, he came back again. After this, Ismailas left his village forever. Now he lives alone, far away from people. Because after dying 6 times, no one wants to be near him. The moment I started making this kind of video, mind-blowing and bizarre stories just kept coming my way. If you love mysterious and unbelievable real-life events, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Stay with us for more. We look forward to seeing your beautiful face again. Thank you.